What's up, everybody? It is Monday morning, and I am so excited to be back with y'all again. Last week was such a huge success. OMG, I can't believe I came back after all that time, and y'all were just so super dope to be so supportive of the show, the Morning Cup podcast, the Morning Cup conversation last week with Kevin. He has had a lot of feedback. He had been texting me that day and just so excited about it. So I think it was all great. I look forward to doing another part with him. But y'all know, as always, I'm excited to have you to tune back into this channel. If it's your first time here, my name is Marissa Farrow, and I'm just excited to welcome you into my community, into this content space, into this space of inspiration, of edification, of illumination, of positivity, and hopefully wherever you are this Monday morning, this conversation helps you to start your day, start your week, and gives you an introspective look at something that you may have never thought of or considered in your life and in your reality that may shift your mind and shift your heart, and also give you a word and launch you into just whatever path of transformation leads you into the best version of yourself. That's all I really hope happens after this. So if this is your first time here, do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, connect. If you're not just on here, YouTube, go to Instagram and you can connect with me there at Marissa Farrow, or you can text me and be a part of my community by texting 443-232-9600, and there you'll receive all things Marissa Farrow. I'm your texting BFF. So I'm excited because once again, I have been privileged to make great relationships and great connections and meet great people and have the opportunity to spend valuable time having conversation with them. And I believe that some of those individuals have wisdom that I want to bring to this space so that I can offer the people who are closest to me an insight, not just into my personality through my connection with my friends, but also into the wisdom that I believe they bring to the table. And so today, we have with us one who he is a friend of mine. The way that we met was so surprising. We'll figure out how we're going to tell that story. But I have learned to love this gentleman truly, and to have a very platonic friendship with him in ministry, outside of ministry, and just really find a true friend within my generation. He is a preacher. He's a thought leader. He is a future theologian. He is a seminarian. He is a student at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology at Virginia Union University. He is a Florida boy, but he is now stationed temporarily here in Baltimore City. Welcome to this platform, my friend. I call him a little Mixie, Isaiah Mixon. The people are applauding right now. And no, he is not related to the football player Joe Mixon. Are you related to him?
He actually is.
He is related.
Actually,
he is like a distant cousin to Joe Mixon. And so, hey, it's all, listen, that's so dope. I think I asked you that. But welcome.
Thank you.
To the space.
Glad to be
first,
here.
Giving honor to God. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Wonderful.
How
Glad.
you doing?
I'm here by the help of the Lord. And it's a Monday morning, and somebody else's testimony is that they are here by the help of the Lord. Because, this life, is ghetto every day.
Yeah.
And the weekend seem to be working overtime.
Definitely, for sure. The
weekend is always working overtime on ghetto. Maybe somebody who's driving in their car can say, bro, my weekend was completely ghetto this weekend. Did you have a ghetto weekend?
It was ghetto adjacent.
It was okay.
It was ghetto adjacent for sure.
Right, but did it end in worship?
For sure.
Awesome. Who preached
100%.
On Sunday?
Bell did. Bishop Bell did.
Wait a minute. I saw a video of him directing the choir.
And he directed the choir.
What? In Ugly's Christmas sweater.
And we had our ugly Christmas sweater contest.
Excuse me?
Yeah. So it's been great. It's been a great journey moving up here, and I have a small circle here, which is all I need. But I will say I am grateful that you are a part of that circle. For sure.
Oh, well, look at that, y'all.
Sure.
You're being kind this morning.
I'm being nice today.
You're being nice today? That's because you don't want me to out you to the people in the room. I was like, no.
That I'm really a Grinch.
He's really the Grinch. The Grinch that stole my Christmas. Like, let me stop. The people are
Oh man,
you weren't ready for me. I'm telling you, he was not ready for me to come this way today, but I'm coming. It's like, nah. How did you end up in Baltimore anyway? What led you to Baltimore?
honestly,
I'm gonna leave you alone because you read. It's like, nah,
it's it sounds crazy, but not to people like us. But the Lord told me it was time for me to pick up and move.
Oh, you felt like Abram?
Yeah, it was time for me to go. Where I came from is the greatest place for me to have learned. I learned from, to me, the greatest to do it. He's been doing it since the 80s. For those that I know, there's many that are not familiar with me. As she said, my name is Isaiah Mixon. My dad is Todd Hall. He's not just my spiritual father. He's the man who raised me. He's the man who raised me. Lived in his house since I've been a kid, and still there. Went for Thanksgiving, stayed in the house. That's my daddy, man. That's
always
my man.
good
100
to have
grand.
a room, right?
Oh, always good.
You know,
to have a room. And with everything that he taught me, he's taught me so much.
Yeah.
We could go into it, but he's taught me so much. But it was something that God was impressing upon me that I had. He needed to plant me. There were some things that he needed to do in me. Todd Hall did a great job and continues to do a great job.
I love that.
But there's a season that God was telling me it needs to be me and you, like it was for him, where it was just me and him.
Wow.
And I came up here, and it's so crazy. And people are weird. We're going to get into the weirdness of people too, I'm sure, with this conversation, because people thought we just split up. Or like the people that do know me, know the connection. They thought I just totally left my dad, we just split up. We're on the outs. Like,
pause for the cause. Why do everybody gotta assume
it's something negative?
Something negative.
Like, I talk to him. Text him more than I do anybody in my family. But the odd thing about it is, the further away I got, the closer we got. Not that we were drifting apart at all. We're very close. But now being up here, God allowed me to walk some similar paths that he did, because he used to be here in Baltimore in the 90s, doing revivals back when people were still doing 30-day revivals and stuff like that. So, God has allowed me to walk a similar path like him, and it's drawn us even closer together. So, but I'm here, and I'm glad to be here, and we trying to make something work out here.
That's awesome. I thank God though that even listening to you, I don't want to ever feel like you have to come to the defense of how it looks, right? Because the one thing that I've learned is what is understood does not need to be explained.
Absolutely.
And let me tell you, I remember there was a season of my life, and I thank God, and I tell this testimony boldly. There was a season of my life where, my pastor, and when I left my father, my birth father, to go to Greater Allen, that was a difficult decision. It wasn't like easy leaving your father's house, right?
Sure.
So to be able to come from Florida to Baltimore and even make that decision, like, stop defending yourself at this point. Like, I ain't saying that. I'm saying that me to you, Rock. I feel like I'm sorry about these cameras. I'm saying that to say literally how that story is in Abram's life. Like God said, you got to leave everything you know.
For sure.
Like sometimes you got to be willing to leave the familiar in order to face the future.
Absolutely.
In fact, sometimes God has to pull you away from the familiar so that he can reveal the future to you.
Absolutely.
And maybe the lesson for somebody in this already is that you have been so much wanting to hold on to what you know, when God says, I can't even show you what's next because you so familiar to where you are. Like, I remember feeling, like I was betraying my father,
100%.
Leaving his church after 23 years.
Absolutely.
And it was hard. And it was just like, but here's this great opportunity. But one thing for certain, there is a blessing in being not just birthed in the good families, but then being connected to good spiritual families, because the good thing is that my father has always wanted the best for me, right? So he's always pushed me to, make decisions that were out there for me. So when the opportunity came for me to come to Allen, he was like, go, like go. And so that connected me with Dr. Elaine Flick, of course, and that changed my life. And so the blessing in listening to you is that, like you said, while everyone else may have looked at it or thought that there was some negativity behind the decision that you made, the reality is that sometimes you need that in order to strengthen the relationship.
Sure.
Sometimes you have to be able to go away and learn things that cannot be taught at home. You know, one of the prime examples, and shout out to Bishop Walter Scott Thomas and Little Walter. I call him Little Walter. That's my friend. I'm sorry. He is Pastor, Reverend Dr. Senior, Reverend Dr. Brother, STVU mate, Walter Scott Thomas Jr. And I thank God for him. What he's doing is so phenomenal. But to see their model, to have been around and to have witnessed this, you know, I've known these people since I was born. So to witness the way, I remember, you know, all the rumblings in the community at that time, and I was young. So the rumblings was, Bishop is sending him away to get him ready for the next thing, which was to step into, you know, the ultimate pastor where he is now. I don't know if that was Bishop Thomas's mindset at the time, but if it was, kudos to him. Kudos to parents and people who are raising children or who are spiritually placed in people's lives, who understand that sometimes there's a season when I got to let you go so that you can come back better than when I let you go.
It even happened with my biological father. And the crazy thing is, my father, I'll say my fathers, Todd Hall, and my biological father, Frank Mixon, they're best friends. So if you want to know
literal best friends.
Literal best friends. Todd Hall's best friend is Frank Mixon.
Yeah.
So it came to a point when I was like 12. I was like 12. And I just had, I guess God just gave me this gifting early. And it came to a point, he was like, I've taken you as far as I can.
Wow.
You need to go with him. And then it came to a point where Todd Hall, he looked at me and said, do you want to live with me? I think you should.
Wow.
And during that season, it was a perfect time for me to do it. And along with my brother Tim, and I moved in with him. And ever since then, so, you know, and our families are literally intertwined. It's not just spiritual. We are a family.
Yeah.
So Todd Jr., he hates being called that, but Maury, that's my big brother. Jared, my big brother. Shantae, that's my big sister. DJ, my little brother.
It's a lot of y'all.
It's a lot. We are a whole tribe, for sure. We are a whole tribe.
Well, listen, ain't nothing like it. Sometimes I wish I was raised in a big family with a whole lot of siblings, you know. But, you know, the blessing is that that he was not just there, you know, for you physically. You know, first of all, to take in a child that does not belong to you. Let me tell you that is a that is a love that is beyond anything that you can measure. And I thank God that you were always able to see that even in seasons of correction, that he still loved you.
Absolutely.
Because I don't care how you felt or how uncomfortable you were with the correction. What that man did for you in your life is nothing that you could do to replace that.
No.
And I know that because God has blessed me in the same manner to have that relationship. And so even today, this conversation is really built around some of the lessons, some of the mistakes, some of the things that we have just been able to not only learn, but discover through the process of authentic mentorship, sonship, daughterhood, spiritual leadership, pastoring, because the dynamic has been there for both of us, right? Like we have literally both, and I was gone for 11 years from my father's church.
Wow.
11 years. And it was the hardest thing was always, feeling like I was in a church that was just like thriving and doing all of this. And I was just like, I felt like I owed something, you know, in Baltimore. But the reality is my father had his own assignment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had to I'm like, who are you? Who do you think you are? That you, and what I do know is that the tools that I've gotten in the last 11 years, I wouldn't have gotten here in Baltimore.
Right.
And I'm sure that you can say the same even in Florida.
100%.
And then the thing that I needed most wasn't just the tools that Reverend Elaine put in my hand, that I think she wanted to put in my hand. I think it was the lessons that she didn't know she was going to have to teach me.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
When I tell you the lessons that she didn't know she was going to have to teach me.
Yeah.
What? That chastisement.
Well, hey.
Boy, that season of chastisement.
If you know my father, that man,
Ooh,
they think it's bad when, you know, maybe his other like spiritual children, or what have you. He's militant, right? But he just plays no games because he just expects excellence. And what I had to learn in my life, he's even harder on me, harder on my brother Tim, because not just the spiritual side, but in the family side, he wants us to be better than he was. He wants us to not go through the same mistakes, or even if we went through similar things, he's helped me to navigate how to come out better than I ever would have probably came out if I tried to go through it by myself.
And that's how it's supposed to be, because every generation is designed to be better than the last.
Yeah.
And so I think that the funny thing is, while you said he's militant, that's the thing that people don't see.
Yeah.
The nuances of the relationships.
Absolutely.
That's the thing that people don't see. People don't see how you have to survive their personality in order to find the purpose in the relationship.
And you gotta know how to interpret it as well. Some people you gotta know to love. Yeah, exactly.
I have to know you to.
And take my dad for instance. He's militant. He seems very strict, which he is. But if you don't know him, that's all you see. But if you really know him, you understand he's like that. Because honestly, at the foundation of it, he cares. He actually cares about you. That's why.
Yeah.
That he's so hard.
Yeah.
It's surrounded in his care and his love.
Yeah.
He loves hard.
Yeah. And I think in the same regard, while you have somebody who is like that, and his style of parenting is definitely based on his upbringing. Sure. The one thing that I know about my pastor is she was an only child, right? Okay. And my pastor could have what I think easily could be described as a more introverted personality. And so the funny thing is about what I like to consider the dynamic duo of Floyd and Elaine Flake, to me, I told them they were just like the perfect misfit puzzle that fit together like perfectly. Yeah. Because I think that while they were both brains, it's so funny the way that she would have an idea about something, and then he would just take the idea and make it on everything you see 48 years later, right? And I'm saying that to say, not that he wasn't involved in any of the planning, obviously, but I'm saying that to say it was so interesting because people would describe them sometimes as light and day. A lot of people would think that for a long time that Pastor Floyd was just such the personal person, and he was always out. He would always be seen with everybody. He would always be smiling, which is absolutely true. And people would find it a little more intimidating to talk to Reverend Lane. They would find or feel like she was a little more unapproachable or whatever the case may be. And a lot of people, and I think that even now, and eventually she's going to come on the Morning Cup podcast and we're going to talk about it. I think even now she would probably admit, a lot of people would say around the church oh, Reverend Lane is so changed since you've been around. And I was like, that's because I'm crazy. Reverend Elaine thinks I am so funny. And I just think it has been the premise of our relationship. It is the best part of us. Because when I tell you, I can say anything to that lady, and I'm not talking about anything profane or disrespectful, but I'm talking about whatever I'm thinking at the time, I'm going to say it. One of the little things that I used to say all the time, I remember the very, very first time she said something to me. She said something wild. And I was like, you know what? You are fired. Please go to your room. And she looked at me and fell out laughing. She couldn't believe that this 20-something-year-old girl who she's probably handing the whole world to at this point just looked at her and was like, you are fired. Lady, you ain't even right for that.
I get it.
But it was that small little challenge, right? It was that small little door that I knocked on constantly in a pure way and in a real way and in an honest way that built us to this place where it was so trustworthy, where no matter what I said or no matter how I came to her, no matter how she came to me, it was always received. Yeah. I remember one time, something was going on, Lord. I was so afraid to talk to Reverend Lane. I didn't even know what to do, Lord. I was so scared. I sent this baby, and please excuse me. I sent this lady an email. When I tell you I sent her an email, because I was like, look, I don't know. And I mean, I'm talking about this is Reverend Lane, I call her, anybody who knows me knows I call her my GGF. That's my good girlfriend. I can sit up on the phone with her all day like Blanche and them on the Golden Girls, right? I could just sit there and talk to her all day. But I'm talking about, I remember literally sitting there going through a season of my life where I was just enamored by the idea that I could be open and vulnerable and real and a woman and all the things, all of the things. I could bring all of it to her and it didn't matter to me. So because I saw her in that space, I was able to see her beyond what people see on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so then when I started bringing that into the church world, where I would still be the same silly, crazy Marissa in the church world, and she would be sitting in the front row cracking up, laughing at me in the middle of church. Yeah. People are like, who is this lady?
Yeah.
But I'm saying that to say there was a knitting, I think, that took place in the spirit,
For sure.
that made access for honorable relationship, where chastisement wasn't just what I needed, it became what I wanted.
Yeah.
I was like, Lord, I was looking for her to tell me when I was wrong. I needed to know, like, so then I started wanting to come, like, okay, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right now? I need because I need the accountability.
Yeah.
And a lot of people want relationship without accountability.
Absolutely. That should be, if anybody is wanting, I guess, a spiritual father or a spiritual mother. Well, let me say this first, because this has become, and especially in our context of ministry, the whole sonship and daughterhood thing has really become it. First of all, it's become weird. It's been a bit bastardized.
It's weird to me.
But let me first.
It's too many non-fathered people trying to be fathers.
Right.
And it's too many people that ain't ever really been able to be a son trying to be sons.
Yeah.
And if you have no framework for what relationship looks like, I feel like I'm talking to John Guns. Where's John Guns when I need him? This is our thing. Yeah. Boy, you talking from the head right now. You talking about it, though.
Yeah. I think the first thing for those that are going to be watching this at some point, and what I want you to first understand is that before we are the sons of men, we are the sons of God.
Wow, that's good.
Run that back. Before we are the sons of men, we are the sons of God.
That was good, saints.
So you have a lot of those that are in the faith, and they're seeking these fathers and they're seeking these mothers, and I get it, but it's to the detriment of them seeking the Father. That should be what comes out of it. I'm seeking God in such a way that He now provides me with something in the earth.
System of support.
Now He provides me something in the earth because of a connection that I've made with Him. Because we are first the sons and daughters of adoption. When we come into the fold, when we come into the faith, we now join God's family. And from that family, He gives us ours. But how can you expect to find a father if you don't make him yours first? So that's the first thing.
That's another thing. And the funny thing is, in seminary, as we start talking about inclusive and exclusive languages in the pulpit, and being able to be sure that we understand that God is spirit and God is not gender, right? So we understand this very avidly in the classroom, right? And so much so that it's beginning to translate not just in my preaching, but it's translated in my prayers. It's very rare that I use the word father in my prayer, not because God is not father, or not because the Bible does not describe him as Abba, which is father. However, when we start talking about the seminary and being thought leaders, getting in front of the issues that exist in the church, one of the things that one of my teachers raised to me that I never considered is that a lot of people in church cringe at the idea of father because they have had such negative relationships with theirs.
Absolutely.
So because they've never been fathered, the idea that this spirit is father, they don't even know what to do with God.
Right.
They don't know what to do with God. They don't know how to accept God. Yep. And that means when they don't understand chastisement either.
Absolutely.
And so they don't understand that chastisement is designed to make you stronger.
Absolutely.
They don't understand that chastisement and suffering is necessary to shape your character. That it is suffering that produces perseverance.
Absolutely.
And perseverance that produces hope, right? This is the very thing that Peter talks about. And they don't understand that because they have never been in relationships where they've had to be accountable to restoration.
Absolutely.
Meaning no matter what I feel, no matter what you've done, and no matter how bad this argument got, at the end of the day, I got to come back and realize that we are in a relationship that is more covenant and more written in the heavens than it is in the superficial.
And I'm not offended after it.
A lot of people don't know how to discuss or debate without offense.
Absolutely. because we always we lead with our feelings, right? We hear with our feelings, and that gets in the way of that tandem between son and father, or daughter and mother, or son and mother. Because as much as Todd Hall is my father, my spiritual mother is Sonia Mixon, and that woman is she can absolutely take responsibility for me, absolutely. So it's also, I've been privileged. I was just talking about this at Thanksgiving. Actually, my dad brought it up because he said he was talking about me and my brother being in his, growing up in his house, being raised in his house. And he said, I didn't spoil y'all, but y'all did grow up privileged. And I had to think about it, because at first I wanted to be like, nah. But I had to be honest, it was absolutely a privilege. And it's still a privilege, because I understand now that, of course, he wants me to be better than him. He wants me to expand in ways maybe that he's never expanded. But as much as that is true, and as much as I'm going to strive to do that, no matter what, I'll never be higher than him. I'll never be higher than him. I'll never be higher than him. I think one of the best, shout out to one of our brothers that I've seen this as a real life example, is Bishop Brandon Jacobs. As popular as Bishop Brandon Jacobs is, as much as he's that man right now, and God continues to establish him and rise him up. Let Archbishop William Hudson walk in that door. He's a son.
Absolutely.
I've seen it with my own eyes.
Absolutely.
And
I think that's important, because one thing that I know is that when you actually have that authentic relationship, you can't help but be reverent to that individual.
Absolutely.
And I remember, you and I were talking about it just a couple of weeks ago, how you had all these strong feelings that you were thinking you were going to go and talk about at Thanksgiving, and all of the things that you felt on your heart that you wanted to get out, and whatever the case may be, right? But it was like the minute you got in, I'm going to say it like this, the minute you got in Todd's face, I'm talking about, because at the end of the day, somebody said this to me the other day, the best of men are men at best. And at this point, you talking about your daddy. When you literally sat there and looked in his face, you were like, there are some things that I may have felt that I just can't release at this very moment. And it wasn't like you punked out or nothing like that. But there was just, you can feel some things, but there is just a reverence in you, right? There are some things even right now that my dad, this happened to me just last night. I was on the phone with my father. First of all, my father answered my mother's phone that I didn't tell him to answer, right? So my father answered the phone. We end up having a conversation anyway. So then he ends up putting my mother on the phone. As he puts my mom on the phone, I start having a conversation that I intended to have with her. I'm having this conversation. I'm just running my mouth. And part of it was about a frustration I was having with my father. And she was saying, well, well, he right here, girl.
You go ahead and talk to him.
I said, Mom, why would you ever not tell me that I was gonna speak? I've been running my mouth I was like, I would never just spring that on him like that. He gonna say, well, we can talk when you get home. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, my mother just set me up. And I have to go face that, right? Because there were some things that I authentically felt that I authentically would have shared with my mother, but there were some things that I probably just wouldn't say to my father.
Yeah.
Because there is just a reverence that I have for him.
Absolutely.
That just when I look at him, I'm like, he could be wrong for all I care. And I'm gonna just be like,
there's a healthy, I must use this word, people may not agree with it, but it's fine because it works for me. I fear that man. And not that I'm scared of him,
right?
But he's a black belt, so he can still do his thing in his 60s. Absolutely. But I have a fear of him. I honor him so much. I owe so much of my life, of what I'm walking into now. Absolutely.
Listen, your gratitude ought to be reflected in your attitude. That's just just as simple 100%. As that. The reasons why, I don't care what, y'all can't tell me nothing about Margaret Elaine Flake.
Absolutely.
I don't care if this lady did something that y'all felt was wrong. I'm going to look at her face and say, and why did you do that, man?
Right.
And that's just it.
Yeah.
And we gonna probably laugh about it because I promise you she got a good reason. And I know she got a reason.
Right.
The reason why I know that is because I know her. When you have relationship, right? Yeah. It produces understanding, awareness, knowledge that you just cannot explain. I can't explain it, but I have been with Shamal for so long now that if I hear him amongst a whole group of people, I'm gonna know who he is.
Yeah.
Because there is an innate nature that is built in relationship. But let me ask you this. What are some of the key lessons that you would take from, your season of I would say exploration? I feel like you came here trying to find something. You came here not just trying to find something, seeking and being led in a new season and a new direction, similar to the story of Abram. What lessons have you learned that you can leave with somebody who's driving this morning, who's like, I've been scared to leave the familiar? And maybe it's not their parents, but maybe it's a familiar relationship. Maybe it's a familiar situation. Maybe it's a familiar job. Because since you've been here, you had to swap over and things didn't work out in one area, but you'd have found a rhythm. What lessons would you leave with somebody today?
A lesson that I would lead with somebody today is to remain teachable. Remain teachable to God, number one, and to who God brings in your life. That's going to lead to a second one, is that when you go into this new place, don't be so closed when you come. When I came up here, I was like, ain't nobody, I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want to have new relationships with anybody. But it took a conversation with my brother, JP. Shout out to John Paul McGee. I love you, big bro. It took a conversation with him for him to let me know, well, I'm gonna say it the nice way because he's mean to me. I'm gonna say it the nice way, but essentially he said, "Well, how do you plan on getting where you need to go if you won't open yourself up to connections?"
Yeah, you were coming here. You felt like you were being led of God, so
Right,
you were seeking something.
right.
So,
So it's like, oh God, you just gonna open?
you felt like you was gonna take one step of the plan, but you was just like, I'm gonna just go,
Yeah,
and I'm gonna just sit there and look around.
right. Because obviously he's just gonna bring it to me
That's
miraculously, and it's something
what
going.
made you feel like that?
Trust issues.
Wow,
Um,
sound like this a whole nother 20-minute
Yeah, for
podcast.
sure. Trust issues. I come from, I've learned a lot, but I just stay in my corner with my family. I've only done ministry, although I've learned a lot and done a lot. I've done it with my family. So this is the first time I'm out here solo dolo, and I'm doing ministry outside the context of my family.
So, what were you afraid of the most
Uh,
when you say
failing,
trust issues?
failing. I was afraid of letting if I'm okay if well, we could take it there. I was afraid of being walked out on,
Oh
letting
wow,
somebody in my space
wow,
because I've been walked out on in my life. So I didn't want to waste energy.
Jesus.
I didn't want to waste that energy to be let down again. I didn't want to do that when I needed to trust God and the people that He's going to bring in my life. And the one thing I was married in my 20s. I was married in my 20s. And I was trying to replace this feeling of love in my 30s. And I didn't know how should I date? Who should I date? Uh, all these different things, right? And the funny thing that God allowed to happen is instead of putting romance in my life to rebuild my heart, he he just brought people. That's when I met my best friend Rob.
Amen.
That's when I met my best friend Rob, who was my barber. I moved up here, met people like you, met people like the Bells. I'm meeting met people like Marvin.
And if I could be totally honest and totally vulnerable here, the funny thing is when he first got here, in the midst of confusion and in the midst of conflict, we almost confused friendship with romance and
Absolutely,
almost blew our
and
friendship.
almost messed up our friendship.
But today,
Yeah,
I think that's more valuable because I've learned who you are.
yeah,
I've learned some of the things that you had gone through, and
for sure.
now I understand why you were so guarded when
Yeah,
you came here. understand how you were kind of looking at your life at the time and where you were. And it was necessary for me to understand forgiveness, which was the funny thing is because we just talked about this on last week's episode, which was all being ghosted, right? We talked about just the negativity of relationships and how had we had a different type of conversation. We did have it eventually.
We did.
We had it eventually. But up front, had we had a different type of conversation, maybe things, wouldn't have happened the way that they did. But no matter how it happened, I think that was the lesson. The hit to heal me. It was necessary. It was necessary for us to get to the place where we were able to share a different experience. And that experience was helping you to become more aware of the season that you were walking in.
For sure.
Like you needed to open yourself up.
I did.
And it wasn't, I don't think I would have reached you that way, honestly. I don't think I would have reached you in a romantic space, to be honest.
And I think it was perfect the way that it happened because it already tested our friendship.
Yeah, very much so.
Because a real friendship or a real relationship.
I'm like, dang, leave me alone. I was like, go home, Roger.
Stupid.
I'm kidding. There, the secret is out. I'm kidding. Look at this guy. I make him blush. I'm kidding. Go ahead, guys. We're really good friends now.
Absolutely.
This is my homie for
real. For real.
But in a good kind of way. I'm really proud of you. Just listening to you even be here, willing to acknowledge you had trust issues, and that the fact that you had been walked out on impacted you the way it did.
Yeah.
I remember a time where I don't know if you would have admitted that.
No. I would not have.
And then now this forum.
I would not have.
I'm so proud of. Did you see? I don't know if y'all saw me. We're gonna run it back. Because the minute he said that, I was like, look at my friend.
I would have never talked about that. Never. But somebody needs to hear that.
Somebody needs to hear that because to see you today, the trust issues can be so crippling to your destiny.
Absolutely.
Talk about it.
What I want to say for those that are watching, whenever you're going to watch this, whatever season you're in, somebody walked out on you. There's a season changing in your life. What I need you to be confident in is knowing this: the people are coming. God's going to bring people into your life that are going to start mending places that you expected other people to mend. Like I expected a piece of my heart to be mended in another romantic relationship where God was like, nah, I just need the right people in your life. And those right persons are not here for the preacher in you. They're here for the person in you.
Come on.
And the more my personhood became healed, I started preaching with a freedom that I've never felt before.
You preaching right now.
Do you hear it? But it's true though. I preach in such a free fashion now. And not only that, God has opened doors for me. Now like people like I travel and preach now, which is crazy for me because I've always grew up and my dad is the guy that travels and preaches, or I got friends
40 plus years.
Right. He's been doing it since the 80s.
Yeah, he's been rolling.
Or I got friends like you that do this all the time. And then now it's starting to happen. That's my
quarterback. I think I'm a quarterback, right? When I get in the pulpit, I'll be ready to throw darts at the enemy, like, let's go. That's my audience of one. It's like,
so now it's starting to happen to me. But that season of God allowing those people to come into my life needed to happen so that the person could be healed, so that the preacher could be free.
Oh my. He's talking.
And I thought, and honestly, going back to why I moved up here, when God told me to move, when the Lord led me to move up here, I thought it was all right. Now you're gonna establish me as a preacher. I'm not just gonna be known as Todd Hall's son. But I'm gonna be able to stand on my own 2 feet right then and there. I'm gonna come out the gate swinging. Yeah. And God was like, "No, we still got some work on the person."
Yeah.
And then once we do that, now the preaching you're not even gonna recognize. And this is people now that have heard me preach in my 20s. Now that I'm in my 30s, I'm in my mid 30s. We getting old in my mid 30s. Now people are like, that have seen me preach so far, they see a different preacher. They see a different person.
That's awesome because you are preaching from your experience And that experience is the pressing that
Absolutely.
produces the oil.
100%.
I talked about being ghosted last week. You were ghosted in a sense in a situation. And that was the hit that healed you.
Yeah.
But you have to allow the hit to heal you.
Absolutely.
You had to open yourself up to all of the experience, right? It has to be, God, any way you want to bless me, any way you want to show me, whatever the lesson is. I look for the lesson in everything. And I think that a lot of people are always looking for it to be good, and they're looking for the lesson to come, kind of just through mama, and it's coming this way. No, the lesson comes through the experience. Like, the only difference between you and me is that I have the experience in things that you don't have. And then there are things that you've experienced that I don't have experience in, right? And that's between anybody, right? Those experiences are the differentiator. Once you endure them, you cannot undo them. Those things are permanently with you. And that's what the children of Israel were kind of dealing with when they were dealing with the 12 memorial stones, right? When they went to go get the stones and set the stones as a sign of remembrance, right? That God did exactly what he said he was going to do. You need the experiences out of the middle of the situation. You can't get it from mama. You can't get it from daddy. God has a way that you can't go over.
Absolutely.
God's got a way that you can't go under. God's got a way that you can't go around in. You got to come in at the door. There is because here's Reverend Elaine preached about this yesterday. Hallelujah to God. She preached there is a blessing in knowing him for yourself.
Absolutely.
God has to expose you to who he is. And sometimes he has to break you in certain places so that you start coming to him to allow him to become who he wants to expose himself as. He says, I am that I am. So maybe in one season he wants to expose himself to you as a healer, but in another season he wants to expose himself to you as a father. 100%. Maybe in one season he wants to show himself to you as a restorer, but in another season he wants to show you himself as a way maker. But you got to be willing to be open to all the experience. And what does that mean, to be open to all the experience? That means to understand that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy. That means everything that I'm going through right now that is attempting to pull me away from the truth of who God is in my life and what he desires for me, everything that is contrary, everything that's trying to fight me, everything that is attempting to hold me back from that purpose is all a part of the plan of God to push me closer to my destiny. So I got to learn how to endure, for I reckon.
Come on, that's literally what was on my mind. And what's crazy about that in that scripture when he says for I reckon in the Greek it's the word logazomai.
Talk about it.
And logazomai, he's not logazomai. He's not just saying, Paul's not just saying so I think. He's not just saying so I thought about it. It's logazomai is actually an accounting term. It means I added it up. I counted the cost.
I have done the
research. It literally means to balance the books.
I know how it's going to end. Here's why: because I have already designated your ending from your beginning. The steps of a good man.
Ordered.
The steps of a good woman. The
Absolutely.
steps of a good person have already been ordained by the Lord. Maybe that's too deep for you. Let me give it to you like my daddy used to give it to me. Marissa, you know my favorite movie is? No, Daddy, what is it? It's James Bond. Daddy, why do you like James Bond? James Bond has been in the worst situations. He's been hanging over the ocean from a ladder. He's been stuck in the cave in the jungle. James Bond always has his back against a wall, but he always manages to get out. Marissa, do you know how James Bond gets out? No, Daddy, how does he get out? Because it's already written in the script. Now, if you didn't like the Bible,
my God,
I hope you like James Bond.
James Bond. The Gospel of Bond.
The Gospel according to Bond. Number 9. Listen, I love this sit down, and I know that there is so much more in you. And the funny thing is, I love watching you evolve through the interview.
Yeah.
I love watching you come out of your shell.
Yeah.
We're going to cut the whole 17 minutes and tell people, get to the juicy part. Open up, man.
Tell us what we want to know.
Tell them what you told them. Let me stop playing. If y'all loved Isaiah, please do me a favor, drop it in the comment section and tell me that you want to have him back. Isaiah, if you could leave something with somebody from this conversation. We've talked about a lot. We talked about being broken. We talked about being chastised. We talked about being accountable. We talked about relationship. What would you leave on this Monday morning as a morning cup for somebody who needs some inspiration today and this week?
The last thing that we talked about, for I reckon, I want to tell somebody that it's going to add up. It's going to add up. It's going to add up. Sometimes the math equation takes longer because you have to show the work.
Show the Ooh, you gotta show the work, 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 show the work. Oh my God! Let me stop.
but really, real quick story. I'm always been a English and history guy. Math wasn't always my big subject, but I did pretty well at it. And one time I was in my math class, and my math teacher at the time was Mr. Gallup, and Mr. Gallup. I was doing my equations, and I did my in class work. Gave it to him. That I gave him the paper. He gives me the paper back. He says, unless you want an F, take this paper back. I'm like, but the answers are correct. I checked it myself. I said, the answers are correct. He said, I know the answers are correct. He said, the problem is you didn't show your work. I need you to, you know, we're telling you right now, and you feel it that you're going to make it. But the middle part, this journey that you're on, you just got to show your work. Show your work. No matter how long it takes. Some people are going to finish before you, and that's okay. Continue doing your work. Don't look to the left. Don't look to the right. Don't cheat. Don't look on somebody else's paper expecting it to be your story. Do your work. And when you turn it in, you're going to get that A.
Ha! The old folks used to say, payday.
It's coming after a while.
Yeah,
my God, don't you start.
Yeah. See, because the people, let me tell you what I really think the problem is. The people ain't really living to live again.
Now that's a whole
nother. The people living for this down here.
That's a whole different conversation.
Man, Isaiah, first of all, I want to thank you for coming on today. I'm going to close the show with this here. Listen, I am just eternally grateful for the opportunity to use this platform to speak to people in the most unique way, to be able to use real life experiences to show you that each of us go through it. It happens to the best of us, right? We all have seasons of ups, downs, trials, tribulations, things that are designed to press the fine wine out of us, the oil, right? That pressing process. And maybe you are the person who's been in the pressing process. Maybe you're the person who feels like you have been struggling, whether it has been in relationship with others, maybe it's been a relationship with God. Maybe the first thing that you have to do, like I think Brother Isaiah described, is take an introspective look at yourself first, because it wasn't until he was able to become free inside that he was able to become free indeed. Every life shift requires a mind shift. For as a man or woman thinketh in their heart, so is he or she. Who do you believe yourself to be today? Do you believe yourself to be healed? Do you believe yourself to be whole? Do you believe that this process is designed to break you? Or do you believe that this process is designed to build you? But after you ask yourself what you believe about you, one of the things that I wish we would explore today that we can explore again, what do you believe about God? Do you believe that God is ever going to put more on you than you can bear? Do you believe that God has your best interest at heart? Or do you believe that God has sent the trials and tribulations that you are facing or that you have faced frivolously, superfluously, and without point? I don't believe that that's the kind of God we serve, but I believe the God whose word tells me that I ought to know that all things work together for the good of them who love the Lord and who are the called according to his purpose. So today I say this, wait on the Lord wherever you are. Be of good courage. He will strengthen your heart. Don't be afraid to leave the familiar to face the future. And whatever you do this week, try something new. Do something new. When's the last time you did something for the first time? Can I pray for you today? Father, in the name of Jesus, I thank you for the power of your word and your presence today. I thank you just for this moment, this opportunity opportunity, this conversation, this platform that you've given me. I thank you for my friend that you've allowed to even come into this space and share his testimony. Thank you for the breaking that made him. Thank you for the breaking that blossomed him. God, thank you for the breaking that is blossoming my brother or sister who is watching this message right now. I pray that you would cause whatever they have faced and whatever they are facing right now to prove itself to have been for their good, because we know, God, that you don't make any mistakes and that nothing catches you by surprise. So, God, today I ask one thing, that you would have your way in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Listen, I hope that y'all had a good time here this week. Hope you enjoyed this Monday's episode. Next Monday, I have another guest, and I can't wait for y'all to meet this individual. If you love my look today, as simple as it is, do me a favor, visit www.brownxmarissa.com and make sure you get your brown crown so that you can be cool like me. Period. I'm out.